Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today we are going to be going over the Winnipeg Jets Iceberg. If you've never seen an Iceberg video before, there's tons on YouTube with multiple different topics, anything you can really think of, TV shows, movies. So basically what an iceberg is at the very top of the iceberg, there is the tip where there's more commonly found information, like so for this case in the Jets, it'll be more commonly known Jets facts. And then as you go down the iceberg, it gets deeper and deeper. And once you get to the depths, it's more of the most uncommon information that a lot of people may not know and that only the real hardcore people will know. I've been wanting to do this for a while now, and I want to kind of get away from just doing weekly videos and just updates on the Jets, because come off-season time that won't be very fun, and I feel like the content will get repetitive over a while. So the weekly stuff will still be there, but there will be some larger Jets projects coming down the chute, and I hope to have more like this in the future. But without further ado, let's get into the iceberg. So I've broken the iceberg up into 6 different columns. So at the very tip, there's the most common information, and at the bottom it's the more uncommon information. So we're going to be starting with tier 1 and we're going to make our way down to tier 6. So the first one we're going to look at is the Evander Kane tracksuit incident. So pretty much what happened was Evander Kane wore a tracksuit to a team meeting, and obviously this was a no-no for the Jets. This was a formal meeting, and he showed up in a tracksuit and he was late. The players actually ended up throwing his tracksuit into the shower. Evander Kane was obviously very mad, and that was really the last straw for Jets management, as Evander Kane was traded later on in the year. Moving on to the next topic, we've got the Patrik Laine trade. Laine was the number 2 overall pick in the 2016 draft, and he was viewed as Winnipeg's franchise player. Patty didn't really enjoy his time in Winnipeg after the 2019 season. It really seemed like he was upset with management, with the locker room, and the whole franchise in general, which did lead to his trade to Columbus. It was a very sad time in Winnipeg Jets history, as Patrik Laine was viewed as the savior for a lot of people, or the first real franchise player. He was just a real different guy, and he was great to have, and it's too bad that it ended the way that it did. Moving on to the next one, we have the Patrik Laine 5-goal game. Laine scored the first ever 5-goal game in Winnipeg Jets history while playing the St. Louis Blues. It's what a lot of fans remember him for, and it was a real iconic moment in Jets history. Next, we've got the AFCO Cup. Before the Jets were in the NHL, they were in the WHA. The Jets were a bit of a powerhouse, winning 3 AFCO Cups in their last 4 years in the WHA. They won it in 1976, 78, and 79. That team is famous for the hotline featuring Bobby Hull, Anders Hedberg, and Ulf Nilsson. All 3 of those forwards were added to the Winnipeg Jets Hall of Fame in 2017. Moving on to relocation. After the 1995-1996 season, the Winnipeg Jets were relocated to Arizona. It was heartbreaking for Winnipeg to lose their hockey team. However, in 2011, the Atlanta Thrashers were sold to True North Sports, and the Winnipeg Jets 2.0 was born. And the last one on the list for Tier 1 is the Jets' first playoff appearance. The Jets caught the final wildcard spot in 2014-2015. They were up against the Ducks, where Ryan Getzlaf was in his prime, and a lot of other players on that team were playing great, like Corey Perry. So the Jets weren't the favorites whatsoever. However, they did hold their own. They got swept, but it was a lot closer than it looked. However, the Ducks were the far better team in that series, and the Jets failed to pick up a win. Moving on to Tier 2, we are going to start with the Paul Maurice waving GIF. Paul Maurice was scrutinized for a lot of the decisions that he had made with the Jets lineup and a lot of other things. So you'd see a lot of people complaining on Twitter saying, why are we doing that? Why aren't we playing this guy? What are we doing? So they'd play this hilarious GIF of Paul Maurice waving, and it was just a joke really, just saying like, oh, I'm the reason that that's not happening. And it was pretty clever, and it really turned into a pretty popular meme on Jets Twitter, and it's still one of the most popular to this day. Moving on to the next one, it's the Jets' first 2.0 goal. Nikolai Antropov scored the first Jets 2.0 goal in his return to Winnipeg, the first regular season game back. He potted the lone goal in that game for the Jets as they lost 5-1 to the Canadiens. Moving on to the next one, we've got the Bobby Hull $1 million contract. The The Winnipeg Jets paid Bobby Hull $2.75 million over 10 years. This was the biggest contract given to an NHL player at the time in 1972. Obviously a big change now, where a lot of players are getting paid a lot of money, but Bobby was the first one to ever get $1 million in a contract. Next up, we have the Save the Jets campaign. The Save the Jets campaign was really sad. It was held on May 6th, 1995. Fans were desperately trying to raise money and millions towards keeping the team in Winnipeg. They ended up raising millions, however it wasn't enough, and the Winnipeg Jets moved to Phoenix the following season. And the last one for this tier is the Teemu Selanne rookie goal record. When Teemu Selanne was a rookie, the rookie goal record was held by Mike Bossy with 53. Teemu Selanne went on that season to smash it with 76, and that's still been untouched, and number 2 is still Mike Bossy with 53. It's absolutely insane that he was able to score 76 goals as a rookie, and I don't think that record will ever come close to being beaten again. Starting tier 3, we have the Evander Kane tracksuit night. In January of 2016, Evander Kane made his return to Winnipeg. This was the first time that he had played Winnipeg since being traded. There was a fan movement trying to get everybody to wear tracksuits, and a lot of people actually did, and it was kind of a funny night where everyone was wearing a tracksuit. Of course, this is referring back to when he got his tracksuit thrown into the shower, and it was just a pretty funny moment in Jets history. Next up, we've got the Dustin Byfuglien and Mark Stone hit. In late March of 2016, Dustin Byfuglien absolutely destroyed Mark Stone. It's one of the biggest NHL hits that I've ever seen, and to this day is one of the most insane hits in NHL history. I'll have the video linked below if you want to go watch it, but yeah, it was a crazy hit. Next up, we've got the Howard Chuck Brinks truck. This refers to the time that Dale Howardchuk went to go sign his NHL deal with the Winnipeg Jets, and he showed up in a Brinks truck. It was pretty badass, and it's definitely remembered by a lot of fans that day when he went to go publicly sign it, hopping out of a Brinks truck. Up next in Tier 3, we have the Brian Little hat trick. The first hat trick in Jets 2.0 was scored by Brian Little on December 5th, 2014 against the Colorado Avalanche. This was a long time coming in the third season that the Jets were in the league, and it was long overdue, but finally Brian Little scored the hat trick. Following that, we have Oh Gale. This refers to the Matthew Perreault 4-goal game where he scored 4 goals. When the Jets score 4 goals in a game, there's a $100,000 reward from Safeway, and Matthew Perreault scored 4. If he would have scored 5, it would have been a $1 million reward. The lucky shopper that had won was Gail McDonald, and Gail walked away $100,000 richer because of Matthew Perreault's 4-goal game. So that'll do it for Tier 3, and now we're going to move on to Tier 4, starting with Toby Enstrom scratched in an elimination game. In 2017-2018, the Winnipeg Jets made it to the Western Conference Final against the Vegas Golden Knights. Toby Enstrom was hurt, and he had an upper body injury, and Paul Maurice decided to scratch him in Game 5. Brendan Morrow was the replacement, and Toby Enstrom was way better than Brendan Morrow, but it was decided that Enstrom would sit because he was too hurt. Enstrom was not happy at all with that, and after the Jets lost that series 4-1, following that game, he went into the locker room the next day and took all of his stuff out before media availability and did not talk to the media. That was Toby Enstrom's last NHL game that he played, Game 4 against the Vegas Golden Knights. He went on to kick around in the Swedish League for a couple years, but that was the end of Toby Enstrom's professional NHL career. Up next, we have the Brian Little ear incident. In early November of the 2019-2020 season, Brian Little got hit in the ear with a slap shot from Nikolai Ehlers, and it ended up being the last shift of his career. Brian Little ended up with an incredibly bad injury to the head. Little was pretty much put on LTIR immediately, as it was very serious. He had a long road to recovery, but the good news is today it seems like he is doing better. It's very unlikely that he'll ever play pro hockey again, but it does look like that he is recovering really well and that he will be able to live a normal life. Moving on, we have the Blake Wheeler draft. Blake Wheeler was actually not drafted by Boston, like a lot of people think. He was drafted by the Arizona Coyotes. He finished off his last 4 years of college and did not elect to sign with the Coyotes and went to the Boston Bruins. In 2011, the year before the Jets came back, the Atlanta Thrashers traded for Blake Wheeler and Mark Stewart, and then of course Atlanta moved to Winnipeg, and that's how Blake Wheeler made his way to Winnipeg, one of the best Jets to ever play when he was in his prime, and one of the best trades that Atlanta ever made in franchise history. Next up, we have Winnipeg is Good. Winnipeg is Good was the title of Patrik Laine's Players Tribune article that he wrote. This was in 2018, and he professed his love for Winnipeg and everything that he loved about Winnipeg. It was a really great article, actually, that he wrote. This sparked a lot of local merchandise. You'll see a lot of people with mugs that say Winnipeg is good, t-shirts that say Winnipeg is good. A lot of people at the whiteout parties and in the stands would have shirts that would say Winnipeg is good. It was just really cool that blew up the way it did, but I think it was great for the city, and it definitely made a lot of people some money. Last up for Tier 4, we have the Ville Heinola Instagram post. Ville Heinola was on the taxi squad for most of the 2020-2021 season, and he wasn't very happy about it, I'm sure, and it kind of reflected in his Instagram post where he wasn't really playing a lot, and in his montage of moments from the season, he posted a couple pictures with the Jets, a couple with the Moose, a couple in Finland, but the last picture on Instagram was his face over the Bernie Sanders meme, just making fun of himself for being in the press box for over a month and just watching a lot of the games. It was really funny, and it's just nice to see that he was able to joke about it. Moving on to Tier 5, we have the Al Montoya contract. Al Montoya was a goalie for the Jets between 2012 and 2014. His first contract was $600,000, and he wanted to make more than his previous contract when being re-signed, so he got paid $600,001. It was pretty funny at the time, and it's just one of those weird hockey facts that just sticks in my head. Up next, we have the Pierre-Luc Home Depot. Now, this is one of the funnier ones on the Iceberg, as it was rumored that Pierre-Luc Dubois was helping out his dad's business, and that a lot of Home Depot workers in Winnipeg saw him picking up different stuff from Home Depot to go help out. This was also the season where Pierre-Luc Dubois got traded for Patrik Laine, and he was having a bit of a tough year, so it was also wondered if this was the cause for him being exhausted, maybe not being fully focused, or whatever the case. I don't know if this is real, but it is really funny nonetheless, and there's a lot of really good Home Depot jokes on Twitter, if you guys want to go find that. But it's a really funny Winnipeg Twitter moment with Pierre-Luc Dubois. And just for context, if anyone doesn't know, Pierre-Luc Dubois' dad does live in Manitoba as he coaches for the Manitoba Moose, so that's why those rumors were spread. Up next, we have Party Time. This refers to the Adam Party incident when he went crashing into the glass against Chicago. This happened in early November of the 2013-2014 season, and he actually got bumped into the glass and the glass pane fell out. The video will be in the description, but essentially what happened, if you don't want to go watch it, is that the glass actually came out and a fan reached over, very, very drunk, and grabbed Adam Party's helmet and put it on his head. Adam Party was issued an apology from the Blackhawks and a personal apology from the man that took his helmet. This remains one of the strangest things that has ever happened in Winnipeg Jets 2.0 history. Moving on, we have Stamkos scores 60. In the Jets' inaugural season in 2011-2012, Steven Stamkos scored his 60th goal of the season. He finished the year with 60 goals, 37 assists for 97 points. Moving on to the next one here, we have the Jim Man Sucker Punch. This happened all the way back in 1981 with the Jets 1.0 team. Paul Gardner had gone and he had cross-checked Doug Smale right in the face, and Jimmy Mann did not like that at all and came through with a vicious sucker punch that actually broke Gardner's jaw in two places. It was a very dangerous punch from the 22-year-old at the time, and he was suspended 10 games from the NHL, and he had to forfeit the money that he would have gotten paid if he had played those 10 games. However, he did go to court, and on May 18th, 1982, Jimmy Mann pleaded guilty to assault causing bodily harm. However, the judge only gave him a $500 fine, and he walked away able to play in the NHL and resume his career. Next up, and the last one for Tier 5, is the Andre Pavlik shutout streak. In 2014-2015, Ondrej Pavelec was having a bit of a rough year, and it looked like Michael Hutchinson would soon be taking over his starting position. The Jets were struggling to get into the playoffs, and it looked like Michael Hutchinson would be the guy, but he started to struggle, and Ondrej Pavelec came in at the end of the year and put on a performance that many Jets fans will never forget. This was game 79. There was only 4 games left in the season, and he pitched a shutout against the Minnesota Wild. The Jets won 2-0. The next game, back-to-back nights, he pitched a shutout against St. Louis where he won 1-0. And then in the following game against the Colorado Avalanche, the Jets had lost in a shootout but did pick up a point. They lost 1-0. So Pavelec didn't let in a goal in regulation or in overtime, only in the shootout. And with that 1 point, Ondrej Pavelec led the Jets to a playoff spot and their first ever playoff berth in franchise history to that point for the 2.0 team. I just think that's a story that a lot of people do forget about, and a lot of people don't know about from that season, was the emergence of Ondrej Pavelec in the clutch when the Jets needed him most. And now we are at the final tier of the Iceberg, Tier 6, the deepest it goes, and we are going to start with the Dustin Byfuglien boating incident. In the offseason of the 2011-2012 season, Dustin Byfuglien was charged with careless boating. He was driving the boat under the influence and refused to take a chemical test. Dustin Byfuglien did plead guilty to careless boating and was charged with a $1,000 fine and 2 days of community service. To go with that, he was on probation for a year and had to take a mandatory 1-day alcohol education class. Next up, we have the Jacob Trouba trade. A lot of people thought that Jacob Trouba just didn't want to be in Winnipeg, and while that was partly true, it wasn't for the reasons that a lot of people thought. Trouba was in arbitration with the Jets, and they never really signed that long-term deal that they were looking for early in his career. Trouba ended up getting traded to the New York Rangers for a first-round pick and Neil Pionk. That first-round pick actually ended up turning into Ville Heinola. The reason that Trouba wanted to get traded to New York was because his longtime girlfriend, who he had a long-distance relationship with, was a doctor there, and they had a long-distance relationship for a long time and wanted to get traded so that he could be with her more often. So I don't think anybody can really hate on that. It's got to be tough living long distance like that, especially when you're a doctor and your boyfriend is an NHL player out of town a lot. So it must have been tough for Trouba, but I'm happy that everything worked out for both teams. And next we're going to go on to the Chris Draper trade for $1. So in 1993, Chris Draper was a member of the Winnipeg Jets, and he was traded to the Detroit Red Wings for $1. Draper wasn't really valued in the Winnipeg organization, and they didn't really see a use for him, so they essentially traded him for free to the Wings, where he became a really important role player for a lot of their Stanley Cup runs. Draper is a 4-time Stanley Cup champion in 1997, 1998, 2002, and 2008. Draper retired with the Red Wings after the 2010-2011 season, where after his career was all said and done, he had over 360 points and 1,157 games played in his NHL career. Moving on to our next one, it is the Jacob Trouba app. This one was just a little bit weird because it's so strange to think that an NHL player has their own app. Especially Jacob Trouba, you wouldn't think that. You'd think it'd be more of a star player, but it was pretty funny. What you could do on the app was you could sign up for contests and try to win Jacob Trouba merchandise like signed stick, signed pucks, and jerseys. This isn't something that you would typically see today, and I don't believe any NHL players have their own app. Maybe they have their own websites or stores, but definitely not a mobile app. So that was definitely one of the weirder things to happen in the Winnipeg Jets 2.0 history, off ice anyway. And to wrap it all up, the final one that we're going to talk about today is the Adam Lowry and Brandon Tanev kiss. Adam Lowry and Brandon Tanev were in a Skip the Dishes commercial. For anyone that doesn't know, Skip the Dishes is kind of like DoorDash, but I believe it's only in Canada. I could be wrong on that. Anyways, it doesn't matter. So what they had to do in the commercial was one of them would be blindfolded and the other one would feed them food, and they would have to guess what the other one is feeding them. So the commercial went on as you would expect, and they ate the food, they went on to guess and everything like that, and it was a really funny commercial actually. And right at the end, Adam Lowry and Brandon Tanev smooshed each other. It was a pretty funny moment, and it really showed how close those guys were when they were on the same team, and it's too bad that their friendship didn't get to last longer here in Winnipeg, as Tanev went on to sign with the Pittsburgh Penguins. If you want to see the video for yourself, I'll have the video in the description below. But that'll do it for the Winnipeg Jets Iceberg. This is something that I've wanted to do for a while now. I just haven't gotten around to doing it just because of the trade deadline and a couple other things going on right now. This was a lot of fun to make, and I made the Iceberg. I'll have the Iceberg down below if you want to make a video on it yourself, or just hold on to it to show your friends. But yeah, so if there's anything that you think that I should have included on the Iceberg, let me know. Is there anything that you would have taken off the Iceberg? Yeah, just leave a comment below, leave a like on the video, and subscribe if you are new. It was a lot of fun making this. Thanks so much for watching, everybody, and I will see you in the next one. Have a great day.